Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining Dorsey Ross on this episode of The Dorsey Ross Show. In this episode, Dorsey interviews another special guest that will give you hope and inspire you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining me in another episode of The Dorsey Ross Show. Today, we have a special guest with us. Her name is Miracle Sims. She's a wife and mother of one. She is a versatile talent. She has received her associate's degree in theater at Gordon College in 2006. She has been acting, writing, singing, and songwriting independently. She is currently the owner of several business endeavors. Miracle plays unwind, self-care, and ship spa. She is also a host and creator of the podcast and talk show God, Sex, and Love, and author of the Cultivation Period of Single Christian's Journey. Miracle, thank you so much for joining me
today. Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Dorsey.
No problem. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Yes, sir. So I am from Jackson, Georgia, also known as Butts County, Georgia. And, I guess I was a small town girl with big dreams. I mean, I realized in maybe like the sixth grade that I wanted to be an actor. And so that was something that I started to pursue. I found different ways to hone this craft of acting. Even though my small town didn't necessarily have much to offer. But I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of things that kind of built that bug in me. Like, for example, my mother would write plays and things like that, or she had me, being the narrator for this or that, or, instead of saying Happy Easter, everybody, right? I was saying poems for Easter and everything like that. So I'm sure it probably started there. But basically after high school, I went full force. And like you mentioned, went to college for theater. And then after that, I moved to Florida and I ended up working at Walt Disney World for about 5 years as, in entertainment there. And if I pause right there in that part of my life, I would say that's where I really, really started to, I guess, not only like find myself and my own voice and whatnot, but also build my relationship with God. Yes, I always knew about Jesus and everything like that because, my mother's an evangelist and it was instilled in me. But I would say that, during that time in my life, that was when I really started to focus and build the relationship for myself and not just, depending on my mother's prayer or anything else like that. And so throughout that time, I was single. I was Christian. I mean, obviously I'm Christian and I was single at that time. And I desire marriage. I desire love and to experience, what I saw or imagined to be, this beautiful side of life, and the thing was, it was kind of tough because I was dealing with a lot of different things. Growing up, how can I say, and try to make this long story short. Well, again, even people that grow up in the church, some of us still deal with things, and so one of the things that I was dealing with is, I guess I still don't have a better way to say it, but I guess I was dealing with being a horny Christian, for me to just be completely honest. And so, during that time of my life, my Florida days, I was trying to figure out like, okay, if I want marriage, if I want love, what I was doing around those times was like fooling around. So I wouldn't necessarily have sex, but I would, fool around and do other stuff. And it just was like, okay, well, what are you doing, Miracle? Like, at the end of the day, you want love, you want marriage, you want, the things that you feel that God has for you, but you're not living that way, right? You're doing things that aren't lining up with what you want. And so I want to say that is what led me back to God. Honestly, that's what led me to focus on building that relationship and focus on like the things that he was showing me in that season and at that time. And so since then, I started to, building my relationship, I started to focus and try to get, more Christian content and watch different things. And what I noticed about the things that I was seeing, or the different like conversations that I would watch and things like that, that people would only go so far with the conversation when it came to Christianity. Like, for example, if I go and watch a show about, and they're talking about sex and they're Christians, they're talking about it, I guess I couldn't fully relate because I'm over here horny or whatever, for example, and no one's talking about it. And I just was like, am I the only one? Like, no one else goes through this, And so that was kind of the beginning stages of my podcast and talk show that I have now called God, Sex, and Love. Because just looking for a place to, God, Sex, and Love, I feel like is a place where Christians in particular, but everybody is welcome to come have conversations. But it is for Christians to come. Feel free to talk about God, sex, love, and everything in between. Because I feel like personally, and I can go on and on about this, so I'm going to try to pause after I say this, that I feel like as Christians, if the more that we're not having a conversation and being open and honest about it, and being real and relatable, then the world is gaining territory in that area, and we can see what that looks like all around us, from everything that people are experiencing today, things that people are battling on their own, and it just goes on and on. So what I hope that GSL does is just provide that space where people can go and listen to people, be open and honest, so they can see that they're not the only one, and they can see that, even Christians, we still don't have it all together in certain areas and things as well. So, that's just a little bit. I try to make my long story short, Mr. Dorsey, but that's a little bit about me and how GSL came to be.
Right. That's cool. What do you think is a topic that you have discussed on your podcast where, when you would go and look at other podcasts or other blogs and whatnot, that they wouldn't talk about that specific thing, but you have on your show?
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, there's a few topics that come to my mind, but if I think particularly about what I was looking for back in the day as a single woman and what we have tackled thus far, I would say the conversation of what should I do as a Christian person when I'm horny, because again, I feel like these conversations are. I was constantly having a battle in my single days, because it was like, as a woman, I know that having a natural desire for a man, that isn't a sin. That isn't bad to have that desire. It's to act on those desires when it's not the right time. And so, so we did tackle that conversation, and we had, single people and married people, and we were all having a conversation. And so we tackled it from the married perspective as well as from the single perspective as well. Obviously, at different moments, there's different results or different parts of that conversation. And perhaps we could tackle it again, just dealing with the single people or just dealing with married. But that's one that is definitely one that I feel like had to be done once I kicked off this whole conversation on GSL. So that's one. In the very first episode of GSL, we talked about the importance of sex in marriage, because unfortunately there's this stigma, right? Or this little thing that people say that, once you get married, people don't have sex, and, or things fade or whatever the case is. But God says, or according to the word, this is supposed to be the time that we're supposed to be doing these things. And I just found it very interesting, even as I do my Bible study journey and everything like that, how much things conflict with the word. Like, if you look and see all the advice that people give in the world, or secular advice, it goes completely the opposite of what God in the Bible says. And so, that's an important conversation as well that we've tackled.
Right. And going back to the, when we're, as you said, horny, how do we deal, with those issues and with those desires? Because, like I think you even pointed out that, that's part of our human body, and that's part of, being who God created us to be,
Well, for me, what I had to do was I had to focus on other things in that aspect. Like, there were some things I had to change about what I was doing at that time. For example, again, like back when I was fooling around, I had to cut out the fooling around. I knew I wanted marriage, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. Even after I did those things, then I stopped or whatever the case is, I can't say that I, maintained it to be like I lived a perfect life. There's some people that have not even kissed until they're married, and I commend those people. I think that's a beautiful thing. I'm like, wow, the restraint that takes to even do that is amazing to me. But for those that may not, they may be in my shoes, and we failed in certain areas, or maybe we've experienced certain things already, and we want those things, right? What I had to do was just focus on other things. So during that time, I was writing down my thoughts and different things that I was experiencing along the way. So that's one thing I did. And now it's a book. Now it's the cultivation period of a single Christian's journey, So that's one thing. I had to really be intentional about like stopping certain habits. And it got hard sometimes, and it was like, difficult and that battle within. But, sometimes I believe that we have more power than how can we say, than we sometimes act. Like some people really, they'll be like, oh, I can't change, or I can't do this, I can't do that. It's like, no, sometimes it's just as simple as making the decision to do it and then doing it. Yeah, it'll be hard, right? And I can say that, yeah, my experience, it was hard to take control over myself in that aspect. But it's not that I can't do it. It's, do you have the will to do it? Are you going to stick to what you said you're going to do? And are you going to be faithful? And for me, I called it being faithful in the small things. And I felt like the more I did that, that's what got me to the place where I'm at now. And yeah, that's what I would encourage everybody to do. Take charge. God has given us all that power to do that. And so, yes, you do have the power to do it. It's up to you to do it. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I don't think when I find, a girlfriend, I don't think I'll have the ability to wait until marriage to kick her either.
Right. I mean, and I understand. I totally understand, and especially when you feel like you're in a relationship, and yeah, that's one thing that I slipped up on as well, where it was like, once I felt like for a while I was single and just by myself, and that was the thing. I was like, okay, I'm just single. I'm single. But then when I did get in a relationship, then you sometimes you feel obligated, right? Because that's what the world says. They push this whole idea of when you get in a relationship, you need to do this, you need to do that to keep the person. And I mean, well, God says different. That's all I'm saying.
What would you tell single Christians who are looking to find the right man or woman?
Well, I definitely would say be patient and wait on God, because you definitely want, like you said, to find the right person. You don't want to entertain the idea of just during that time, what I called him was like Mr. Right Now, right? Like, I'm like, well, this guy likes me right now, so why not? type of thing. I would do that all the time, and found myself in situations where I was like, man, why did I even end up in this? I did not even have to experience this if I had just waited on God. So yeah, again, it's hard. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I mean, it's one of those things where you like, I battle within this whole, like, my faith and my works. Like, I want to show you, Lord, that I'm, I have, I have the faith to do the things that you want me to do. But at the same time, sometimes it's like, just wait and have the faith, and sometimes like put the work in. So I battle with that all the time. But yeah, I would wait on God. I would listen to his voice when it comes to different people. I think using discernment, I believe you'll know about a person. You'll see those red flags. Now, are you going to ignore them or not, and everything like that? That's that's where a lot of that stuff comes in. So yeah, I think staying in the Word, being prayed up, and listening to the voice of God when it comes to everything, and consulting him with everything. Hey, you meet somebody, Lord, is this the person for me? Like, I think we need to practice that and get that into our hearts and minds. Like, I don't know how many times we do that as humans, to really consult him about everything, but I think that's what he's expecting us to do.
Right. Why do you think we see more and more Christians living together and probably having sex before marriage, especially when, God says in the Bible, that we're not supposed to have, sex before marriage?
I think it goes back to what the world presents to us. It's a lot of how can I say, when we look at relationships and we look at different things, we're looking at it like, oh, this is what we're supposed to do. Again, some people are like, oh, they want to try before they buy and all this different type of stuff. Now, again, everybody's not like that, because I know a couple of people that they didn't kiss until they were married. I know some, online and some other people that I've met that, they are, virgins, or they were virgins up to their marriage and everything like that. So it's possible people are doing it, but those type of people, they don't get the platforms, right? They don't get like the huge followings and whatnot. For the most part, the people that get followings and stuff are the people that are being promiscuous, or the people that are promoting this idea of basically, again, doing everything the opposite of what God says to do. So it's just become so normal, at least here in America, I would say, that people think that, oh, it's okay, it's the norm, it's just whatever, it's not that big of a deal. And again, I'm not perfect. I'm a human too. Like, I mean, I've definitely failed and slipped up in areas and whatnot as well. And I can't sit here and say I did everything absolutely correct or whatever. But I just would say that, there is something beautiful about doing things God's way. And you can save yourself from a lot of different things, the disappointments, the depression, the different things that come along with sex. Like, it's not just the act. There's definitely more involved when you're doing that. And so, a lot of the things that we see, broken homes, all kinds of things where, people are dealing with, like they call it baby mama drama or baby daddy drama, all these different stuff, when, if you did things God's way, you would have been with your husband when you had your child versus, what we see. And so I think when you look at the bigger picture of everything, then you're able to see, okay, well, let me do it God's way because he's going to bless it, versus we get out here and just do things our own way and then hope that God blesses it. And yeah, all things can work together for the good of those that love God, but it does say as well that, everything isn't beneficial for us to do. So, yeah.
Right. And I think sometimes, we don't hear, from the church or from, sermons in the church telling us, or, talking about the topic of singleness, or talking about the topic of dating, and talking about the topic of, not having sex before marriage, that often.
Mhm.
I wonder if that's part of the reason as well.
Yes, sir. I agree. And that's what I'm saying about GSL, because I don't know what, I mean, well, how can I say? On one hand, I mean, the enemy is just gaining territory. That's the reason why at the end of the day. But yeah, I do believe that people in these leadership positions, pastors and people, they need to tackle these subjects. I've only seen a few ministries that really, give that biblical perspective, the truth and love and whatnot. Like, and some people still, even though they may say the truth and love, they still don't. People are so easily offended these days that may be part of the issue as well, because people don't want to step on anyone's toes. But I think that, real leaders and men of God and everything like that, you all need to get bold about this and whatnot. Because again, the enemy is gaining territory in this area, and our children are growing up in a society that's very different from when I grew up and very different from when my mother grew up and everything like that. And so if we want them to have value and value life and, marriage and all these things, then we need to teach, right?
Absolutely. What do you think? We all have a different, maybe a different definition of love. What does love look like to you? And what do you think the biblical definition of love is?
Well, they say simply that, God is love. That's what they, but, I mean, yeah, it definitely, there's a lot to be said about love. I mean, the interesting thing is, yeah, there's different types. And it was funny because I was talking to someone else on their platform about this, and they were talking to me about love. And I just, at the time, in the beginning of the conversation, I just was like, but is it? Are we making it difficult to say that there's all these loves, But I mean, I get that there's different, relationships that you have with people. Like, again, my love for you as my brother in Christ would be different from my love for my husband, and everything like that. And so what do I think is love? Again, I guess I just would stay simple and say what the Bible says. It's patience, it's kindness, it's that thing that is unconditional. I mean, I believe it's grace and mercy and all those things as well. And that type of love seems definitely rare. I know people would tell me all the time that, oh, you're too nice or this or that. And my whole thing is, I'm like, I'm just trying to show love to somebody as I would want shown to me. That's what the words say. But, again, and I get about having boundaries. That's a whole nother conversation. But, whatever that love is that you would want to experience, I feel like that's what we need to be showing to each other. And, yes, again, there's these different types of love, agape love, the brotherly love, all these different things. But I mean, yeah, that's what I would say about love.
Do you think that there's such a thing as love at first sight when it comes to, relationships and especially the dating aspect of that?
I mean, I think it's possible. I mean, no, I ain't trying to like toot my own horn, but my husband say when he saw me, you know what I'm saying? It was interesting because I guess I stood out to him that day. All I remember is I saw him, he was talking to someone, and I just saw the figures of people, but I guess he really saw me that day. I don't know. But yeah, some people say they do experience that where they, meet someone and they know. So I wouldn't say that they, I think it's possible.
No, go ahead.
No, well, I just was going to say, like, whether now is that deep thing that's going to keep you all, in relationship. Now, that's a whole nother conversation. But, I think the initial attraction or initial, like, that peaking of interest, or maybe even God telling you when you meet someone that, hey, look into this or whatever the case is. If you have that strong relationship, then yeah, I think it's possible.
Right. And I think, it goes back to, is it actual love or is it just, hey, I think he's attractive or I think he's good looking. Let me try to go and see, what could happen.
Right.
Here.
Yeah, definitely. I think that type of thing definitely stems from the initial attraction or initial, like, physical aspect, but yeah, there's definitely something deeper there. I mean, you definitely would need to explore to see if there's something there versus just going straight off of that, Mm-hmm.
Right. There's a lot of different ways of people dating. There's even courtship that people talk about. If someone was to ask you, what is the best way to date, what would your answer be?
The best way to date. I mean, here's me. I think dating with a purpose is probably the best way to date. Like, if for example, that you don't want to, or you can see yourself long term with someone, then I don't think wasting that person's time is beneficial. Like, I think you'll know probably after the first few dates or the first few conversations whether or not it'll be long term or be something where you feel like you can, move forward. I feel like a lot of times people play games in that area. They're like, they'll keep either string people along or whatever the case is. Just be open and honest. I mean, I think again, you can say the truth in love, after the first few days. If you don't see that going anywhere, then be honest with that person and let that person move on, and you can move on and find whatever it is that, you feel that you need, whatever, or maybe that person didn't have or whatever like that. So I think being intentional about, dating, I think people that date should be dating with the intention to get married. In my opinion, like, I mean, because any other thing is just a friendship, right? It's just like, oh, you can have friends and whatnot. That's fine if you guys just want to go out and just be friends, and that's cool. But if people are looking for marriage and then, but they're dealing with somebody that doesn't want marriage, they don't value marriage or whatever the case is, then again, that's a waste of time. That can lead to hurt, unnecessarily, and different things like that. So communication is key, and dating with the purpose, I feel like, is key.
Absolutely. We see marriages ending, a lot now. And before people get into marriage, what do you think is the foundation for them to do to have a long-lasting marriage?
I mean, well, aside from God, of course, I mean, I believe that God has to be in it in order for it to truly flourish. But like I just said, communication is key as well. Like if you feel like at the end of the day that you can't talk to your spouse, then that's a huge red flag. And that's something that you should be able to see early on in the dating aspect. I could think back on boyfriends or things that, or relationships that there was just no communication. Like as much as I tried to express myself, the person just never understood me. So I can't imagine where I would be if I was still in that relationship, or if we had have gotten married, or any of those things. You know, for the most part, I do, feel like I have great communication with my husband, and, I can go to him with anything, and he can come to me with anything. And it's not a situation where, there's a battle there, so yeah, I would definitely say, having that communication is huge. That's like, and I feel like some of the relationships that end, either they're not communicating whatever their desires are, or whatever their I can't think of the word in the moment, but I just think, people aren't communicating, and then they're just taking what they call the easy way out, and because they feel like that, because again, divorce is this thing where it's just like, oh, people just do it, and because people don't value marriage. That's what I feel like that boils down to. They just think it's, people literally say these days that, oh, it's just a piece of paper, and it's like, okay, but it's definitely more than that. And I think,
Right. Yeah, I'm 44. I'll be 45. A little over a week, and I'm still single. And tell my friends, and I tell him all the time I want to get married, and then he's telling me, about all these people he knows, and even some people that I know that are, either divorced or getting divorced. He's like, "You sure you want to get married?"
oh man, well, that's discouraging, man. Like, oh
Right?
goodness. And well, like I told you before, Mr. Dorsey, I feel like if it's on your heart and mind to be married, then I feel like that's what God wants for you. And so I just would say prepare, that's what I would say for people that feel as if, hey, I would like to be married one day, or I can see myself, being a husband or a wife or things like that, then yeah, start preparing for that. You may get the naysayers, right? And people that, again, that if they don't value marriage, or if they think little of it, then yeah, you'll get those naysayers and things like that. But you have to just kind of push through with what, God is showing you about your life. Don't let people, speak things over your life that, God didn't confirm.
Yeah. And my friend supports me 100%, but I think he wants to protect me at the
Yeah.
same time, from, getting hurt, and from, possibly getting a divorce at some point, God
Right.
forbid.
No, I understand. And I mean, no disrespect to you or your friend, your friend in particular, or anything like that. It's just, I just want to make sure we encourage people that, because again, I mean, we can get in our own heads about it too. I mean, I'm sure you maybe, I mean, I can't speak for you, but I know for me, when I was single, I was like doubting as well. I would have in my heart and mind, like, I want to be married. I want to, these different things. But then when I didn't see, the man in my mind around me, or if I didn't, I was nowhere near it in those years, those years ago, I was nowhere near being married at that time. And it was discouraging, it was discouraging
Yeah.
because then it's like, well, is that for me, or does God just want me to be single, or, because there's people that live that way too. And that's their purpose, and everything like that. And so, so I think it's that finding that balance between again, being patient and waiting on God to do what he wants to do in his will and in his timing. Also, I believe, again, preparing for that thing that you want, and being content in whatever season you're in.
Right, definitely. What is the next thing for Miracle that's on your horizon?
Oh man, I'm always working on a little this and that. Well, I think I have the publishing bug, so I want to definitely make some more books. I mean, my next one coming out, I'll give you a little bit of preview here. Hopefully really soon I'll be announcing that, my first children's book will be out as soon and everything like that. I would love to continue to create more content similar to GSL. I want to keep that going. I want to keep doing the daily inspiration. I want to keep doing the weekly talk show, but I would love to venture into creating movies and other content like that. So y'all can be praying for me, and if y'all want to support in any aspect, you guys can do that as well. Yeah, I would love to create more content to tackle, these faith-based conversations, or faith-based content to tackle these serious conversations in a way where people can relate to it. Nothing against the Christian movies and things that are out right now, but I feel like, I think I can bring a unique perspective as well. So that is a goal that I'm praying to see soon, and hopefully I'll get my venue again. Be praying for me a venue, because I've been doing I had to pause on doing the different dinner shows and things that I would do, or that I was doing before 2020. And so would be very beneficial for me to have a venue again, to be able to, host events and different things like that.
Nice. For those of us who are single and, we're struggling, whether it be physically or, sexually, or even, struggling with, not finding that, special woman of God or man of God, how would what encouragement would you give, to them?
Well, I mean, I don't want to just plug the book, but I mean, yeah, I mean, but that is one reason I'm sharing my testimony and sharing my story in the cultivation period, a single Christian journey, to help people in that same, boat that I was in, because it was difficult. And I hope that by seeing and hearing my testimony and reading it, that they'll see, okay, I'm not alone, and it's very interesting that I was able to publish it now, when I'm, as people would say, on the other side, now that I am married and I am a mother and everything like that. I published it here in my 30s, when I wrote it back in my 20s. But again, I feel like the things that I learned along the way is still valid. And so that will be the ultimate thing that I feel like people could do. I also feel like building that relationship with God, you and God yourself. Because again, when you're single, one of the things that I shared in the book, that I learned along the way, was that, that's that special time for you and God to do his will and to do, the different things. Because again, when you do have a spouse, then, you have to think about your spouse, you have to think about your family and everything like that. And not to say that God is on the back burner or whatever, but I mean, the word is clear that, the women or the wives, they think about their husbands and, and things like that. And so, so while you are single and everything like that, maybe you can focus on your purpose, focus on, building yourself to be who God created you to be, and to maintain that relationship, to then you'll know for, when it's time to move forward in this other area of marriage and everything like that. Beyond my content, I mean, there are other, there's groups. I feel like, getting a mentor, people that you can Bible believing people that can hold you accountable to live the godly lifestyle and everything like that would be good. I know my mother has a nonprofit organization called Inspirational Outreach, and she's really trying her best to create a space where everybody can come in and come amongst each other. Because again, I believe that fellowship is very important. That's why we're supposed to be fellowshipping as Christians and coming together as the body of Christ. But then I feel like these life groups and different things like that can be good and beneficial for us as well. Because then again, as you are, meeting up with other people, other like-minded people, Bible-believing people, you never know. You never know where you'll meet your spouse, So are you going to stay home, right, and wallow or something like that? Or are you going to, do things God's way? And who knows, when you go to that life group, your wife could be there, you never know. And so just be open to, God's plan and his will and his way.
Amen. Well, thank you, Miracle, for coming on the show today. We greatly appreciate having you.
I thank you so much again, Mr. Dorsey, for having me as well. And thank you for sharing your platform. And looking forward for you to come back on GSL. Come back and visit me.
Absolutely, definitely. Thank you guys for listening again today. We greatly appreciate having you, and hopefully you'll enjoy this episode. Please like, share, and check out Miracle's comments or Miracle's content. And until next time, have a great day. God bless.
Thank you again for joining Dorsey Ross on this episode of The Dorsey Ross Show. Please like, share, and tell others about the show. Also, please check out the other podcast episodes. And if you would like, donate to this podcast and buy Dorsey a coffee. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.